So obviously this is silly and impractical, but it is pretty cool seeing some games that I like so long like this. There's a few things that led me here. One of them was looking at all the different widescreen hacks that are available for Nintendo Switch emulators. I found this while messing around after I had legally dumped all my Nintendo Switch games to the computer. I own these games. Don't take this video down. I've also seen a few different viral Twitter posts of things like this dual screen Nintendo Switch, but it's clearly just a video that's playing on two Nintendo Switches at once. So I wanted to make something functional that looks as close to a Nintendo Switch as I can get it. This build is centered around this screen here. It's $100 on Amazon. It's a 12.3-inch screen horizontally.
It's about 1 zim in length.
It's a resolution of 1920 by 720, which makes it an 8:3 aspect ratio, which is just a bit longer than a traditional 21:9 ultra widescreen aspect ratio, like you'll find in some like gaming monitors. I picked this monitor because the reviews said it only required just one USB-C cable for power and data. It also has touch support, which we're not really going to use much at all. The monitor does a good job of looking the part, so I like it for that, but it's an absolutely terrible monitor. There's like color fringing on some of the edges. The USB-C cable also gave me a ton of problems. The build quality on the inside is absolute trash. I can't recommend this monitor at all. In fact, I can't recommend doing this build at all because it's not practical at all. I'm just doing this for a silly little goof. I ended up having to order a whole second monitor. This new one works way better, but will probably get shitty over time also.
Oh, let's go. Yes.
So this monitor is serving the purpose of this video, but I wouldn't exactly recommend this. I'm sure you've noticed the 3D printed Joy-Con holders on the side. I had to put it down, it's way too heavy. You notice the 3D printed Joy-Con holders on the sides. My original plan was to print these really long Joy-Con shells so that the Joy-Con themselves looked really long and ridiculous. If you've ever done a shell swap before, you know how much of a pain in the ass those are. So imagine doing that with shells that you printed yourself. That kind of frustrated me enough to shelve this project for a while. When I came back to the project, I decided to simplify it a lot, and making this little Joy-Con harness is just way easier. When I started this initially, I was using Tinkercad. I have since upgraded to a Shaper 3D. Are you proud of me? I like it because it's simple enough, but not too complicated. It's not all the way there. And you can do bevels and chamfers. I'm like a big boy now. It has Joy-Con rails, so the Joy-Cons slot in all nice. It has little spaces for the USB-C cable on the left side and the monitor buttons on the right. This attaches to the back of the monitor via the VESA screws. I printed many iterations of this using my Prusa XL. Thank you, Prusa. They sent me this recycled PLA that I use for test prints, but I actually kind of like the way it prints, and the gray doesn't look too bad. So I decided to just keep it like this. I even bought paint and I just never ended up using it. I published these files over on PCBWay, and if you want to try it for yourself, you can just download the files for free, mess around with them, and do whatever you want with them. If you don't have a 3D printer and you want to try this, you can just order the 3D prints straight from PCBWay. Oh, what a great video to have sponsored by PCBWay.
PCBWay is the best way to get all of your little doodads and tchotchkes. PCBWay is the best way to get all of your little doodads and tchotchkes.
Whenever I have a DIY project, I use PCBWay for PCB printing, prototyping, and even 3D printing. If you don't have a 3D printer or you want to print something a little more complex or in a material that you don't have, PCBWay makes it easy. I used PCBWay for the Gotcha SP video a few months back, and a secret project that I can't show off yet. Plenty of creators have their projects up on PCBWay that you can check out right now.
PCBWay is the best way to get all of your little doodads and tchotchkes.
The 3D files for this project are also available on PCBWay if you don't have a 3D printer and want to try it for yourself. Any first-time user gets $5 off their first order as a welcome bonus, but for us, PCBWay is offering $10 off of your next project if you use the code PCBWay-Wulff. Valid on orders over 20 pieces, a minimum $30 order. Whether it's this project or any project you have in the future, try PCBWay today.
PCBWay is the best way to get all of your little doodads and tchotchkes. PCBWay is the best way to get all of your little stupid doodads and tchotchkes, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now, I've been burying the lead here a little bit. Some of you could probably already tell. This thing is powered by a Lenovo Legion Go tablet that is just kind of haphazardly slapped onto the back of it. This is what's powering the whole setup. The Joy-Cons connect via Bluetooth. If you turn the Lenovo Legion Go on without the included controllers attached to the tablet, they won't be recognized as the Player One controller. So it works better that way to not use the tablet with the controllers if you want to use other controllers like Joy-Con. The Legion Go has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, so you've got plenty of data going to this screen. I have it set so the Lenovo screen is completely off. This allows for a lot more power to be focused on the main screen here. It also means that the touch inputs are disabled. So if I need to touch the back or I want to hold it for whatever reason, you're not hitting the digitizer. And this also has a touch screen. It's not a good touch screen, but it has one. You can use this in a 2-monitor setup if you really wanted to. You can make like a ridiculous long clamshell out of this, but one thing at a time here. I just like how the Lenovo Legion Go is very versatile. It kind of makes me wish that a big laptop company like Lenovo would just make a big gaming tablet. That would be sick. Another ingredient to the secret sauce on here is called Play Night. I made a video on Play Night a few months back. It's a great way to get your PC handheld to look more like a console. It's an app launcher that can mimic the home screen of any home console pretty well. On my ROG Ally X, I set up an Xbox looking theme. On this, I'm taking advantage of the Nintendo Switch-ish theme. So not a perfect one-to-one with a Nintendo Switch, but it's pretty damn close. And it just looks really funny seeing all these home screen icons on such a big, long screen. And yes, every game you see here works in full widescreen. Even the Nintendo Switch games that I legally dumped. Those were a bit of a pain in the ass to figure out. But once I figured it out, I did feel a little stupid. If you just Google the name of your Nintendo Switch game and widescreen mod, you'll be sure to find a widescreen mod for your game. Most of the popular stuff is up there. I don't know how to make these mods. I think you just edit a hex file somewhere. It seems easy enough to make. Some of these people are firing these mods out. Just make sure when you download one of these mods, you have the correct version for the version of game that you have. That was my problem. All of my games are version 1.0.0 because they're legally dumped games. They come right from the cartridge. There is no update applied to them. So you gotta find the mod for 1.0.0. That was my problem. Once I found that, everything worked great. You just plop the mod in the Yuzu mod folder, go to properties, and enable it. Then load the game and you're all set. Mario Wonder is a great example of how cool widescreen can look for Nintendo Switch games. Not everything looks great in widescreen. UIs usually break a little bit. Sometimes, like the title splash screen will be stretched out. Mario Odyssey is a good example of how this could break. There's a vignetting that happens when text appears on screen, and that's a little broken in the widescreen mode. A game like Celeste or Animal Well, for example, won't work in widescreen because the levels are designed to be confined in a 16:9 space. So that just wouldn't work at all. It would change the whole design of the game. So I spent a long time racking my brain thinking of all different games that I could use this method to get to work in widescreen. What games I have physically that I can dump and use in the Yuzu emulator. And then I just remembered that this is not a Nintendo Switch. I forgot that this isn't a Nintendo Switch. It's just a PC. So I got a bunch of Steam games, and a lot of them just so happen to work in widescreen because they're built for PC.
We've got Marvel Rivals working as best as it can on a Lenovo Legion Go.
Fortnite, Minecraft, Helldivers, these games all look great on here with no setup required at all. These are games made for PC, so it's no surprise they work in this setup. It's as if you're playing on a big wide gaming monitor. Is Fortnite good? Oh my god, it's Godzilla. What the fuck? What the hell is this game, man? What am I supposed to do? It's Godzilla. Doom supports widescreen natively as well, but I'll admit the controls are horrible. It feels like I was running through sand every few seconds. It like had a lot of slowdown. I don't know if it was the controls or the game running poorly. Call of Duty also supports widescreen, but I don't have that on here because it takes up 300 goddamn gigs and I wanted to try other games. Unfortunately, a lot of indie games do not support widescreen natively, but Bomb Rush Cyberpunk does. And it looks absolutely amazing on here in the full 8:3 aspect ratio. Even the UIs look beautiful in this aspect ratio. This is, I think, the best example to showcase on here. Some games require a smidgen of tomfoolery to get working on here. Blasphemous 2, for example, has a really quick mod you can just drop into the game's files. Then it looks amazing. Sonic X Shadow Generations has a widescreen hack for the Switch, but I have it on Steam, and the Steam version does not support widescreen either. Luckily, Hedgehog Manager is extremely easy to run, and it has a setting that just enables widescreen, among other settings if you want. This same thing will also work with Sonic Frontiers. This is another game that I think looks absolutely amazing on this silly little guy. Using the Joy-Con in this setup isn't as simple as I would have thought it was. Yuzu doesn't recognize two Joy-Cons as one controller, which is ridiculous. That sounds like a massive oversight. Thanks to Tech Dweeb for dropping by the live stream and suggesting Better Joy, which forces the dual Joy-Con to be recognized as one Xbox 360 controller. I leave this running pretty much at all times. X Input has way better compatibility with all the games and even their launcher apps that I'm using here. Sometimes the controls get a little wonky. There might be a hint of drift or a double input here or there, but then you just need to restart Better Joy. Otherwise, everything's great. The other issue with using Joy-Con in a setup like this is the input lag is just horrible. I can't tell if it's all the fault of the Bluetooth connection of the Joy-Con or if it has something to do with the latency of this shit screen. But I did play Fortnite with a keyboard and mouse and didn't really have much of an issue. It could just be a combination of the bad screen and the latency that the Bluetooth controller has. This mod would honestly be a little more practical with the built-in Lenovo controllers. But the entire point was to get this to look like a long Switch, so we had to keep the Joy-Con on here. Another potential downside is the way that the Lenovo sits on the back here. I mean, it's snug. It's not going anywhere. I'm a little afraid to remove it though. Believe it or not, getting metric screws in America is a lot more annoying than I thought it would be. I'm using M4x8 screws that have these flat heads. I built this little mount for the Lenovo to sit in. It form fits so the wings screw in perfectly. When I was testing it, the Lenovo would slide around a little bit side to side. So I put these little spots for straps. I was gonna use a Velcro to Velcro it in horizontally so it didn't slide. But then when I added the screws kind of came out a little bit. This would be sure to scratch the back of the Lenovo. So I put some electrical tape over them. This added just enough friction to keep the Lenovo in place. I would also only print this mount in plastic. The Lenovo is made out of glass and metal, so I don't think there's that much of a risk of this PLA scratching the screen or anything, but I mean, it could happen if it's a bad print. It's also only being held up by like a 2mm overhang. It seems like it's in there pretty good, but I mean, I wouldn't trust it with my life. But again, it's working fine for the purposes of this video. It might be more practical to just not have the harness altogether. Just run a cable when you're using it. It's way lighter that way too. With the Lenovo inside, it's big and cumbersome. As you could imagine, this whole setup is a whopping 1,315 grams, which is about 3 pounds. Another concern is airflow. The Lenovo Legion Go is notorious for being really loud. It has really loud fans. I did my best to cut out some air holes where the fan ducts are. There's one here. There's also a little bit on the back on the inside. I wouldn't say this is particularly safe to have on all the time. Just don't run Doom at max settings or anything. And keep your play sessions relatively short, which shouldn't be too hard because you're definitely not getting much battery out of this. The Lenovo already has a pretty short battery life, and this screen is drawing additional power from the Lenovo. I've been yapping for about 30 minutes, and we lost a quarter of the battery just sitting in the Play Night launcher. That's it. All that being said, it works. It looks enough like a Nintendo Switch for me to make a video on it. And we even have a launcher and a ton of games that work just fine in ultra-wide 21:9 or even ultra-wide 8:3. And they all look amazing. I'm getting a little sick of all these PC handhelds looking exactly the same, so I wanted to make something a little different. I think I'll call this the Nintendo Switch 2 foot, even though it's only about 1 foot. It just sounds better. I have one other project that I'm working on with this Lenovo Legion Go because it's just a versatile thing, having a little tiny gaming tablet that can play all these modern games. So when it first came out, I made this little simple mount. It kind of makes it look like a laptop with a fight pad as the keyboard. Then I took that same concept and did it with the Nintendo Switch, this time with a hinge. And I really like the way that turned out. Well, now I've been working on a new version of that for the Lenovo Legion Go with a hinge this time as well. I even made a PCB just for that. That's taken quite a while, but make sure you're subscribed for that one. We'll call that the Lenovo Legion Clam. Get it? Because it's a clamshell? Blame the Twitch chat. They named that. Anyway, what do you guys think about the Nintendo Switch 2 foot that's actually just 1 foot? Leave in the comments below, add me on Twitter and all this other social media garbage. Of course, thank you PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out at the link in the description. Of course, the most important thing you could do to support us here is subscribe and share this video with a friend who's gonna like this. Thank you very much. Have a good week.